Hey, this is Bloodmire's channel. I'm still here with the birds and squirrels today, and I'm sorry I cut that last video a little short, so be sure not to do that again. On the last one, I felt that maybe the slides were a little dull, so I brought some colors, and that's for your guys' benefits. So bear with me again. This is going to be a little bit more generic video. You can use some of the tactics that I use, and I talk about as far as formations and stuff like that. And I'm going to be talking about some Death Stars that Vampire Counts will be using, stuff that I've used and seen, and tell you whether or not they work. So Vampire Counts players, you can pull this, and other players from other armies can prepare for Vampire Counts. So the first thing we're going to talk about is when setting terrain. Best thing to know is to know your terrain pieces and what it does, and make sure that you have in mind when you do this if it's going to affect you at all, and make sure that if you are going to use it to your advantage, that you make sure that you manipulate it in the correct way, and make sure that you have it available to you. Now, the reason why I'm talking about terrain is because it can either make or break the game. Let's say, for example, I've got down here at the bottom, you've got two forests, a building, obstacles, a river, and a hill. Okay. Now, if you're playing cavalry, if it's not Black Knights, you want those two forests, the river, and obstacles completely out of the way as much as possible. Now, if they're around forest, put them on the corners. If you can set first, get rid of the river. Place it in the corner where it won't be that much of a hindrance to you. The hill's not going to bother you that much. The building's not going to be a big deal either. However, if you have to make those dangerous terrain tests when you march over or through a forest or over obstacles, that's going to hurt you. And it can also hurt your opponent too. So that's when I said make sure that you manipulate into your fashion. If, for example, if your opponent forces you to play with obstacles in your way, set your ground troops up on the obstacles, let their cavalry come over the obstacles, and completely go around it if you have to. So when setting terrain, best thing to do, use it to your advantage. And I used to be all about terrain, and Kyle can quote me on this. I used to be, let's roll 11 pieces of terrain, because I never used to play cavalry, and he used to laugh because I would get soft cover terrain for forest and etc. So moving on. Now, deployment is probably the most important thing if you're playing Vampire Counts. This pertains a lot to other armies, but deployment for Vampire Counts is essential. It will make or break the game. Now, when you deploy, there's a few different ways that I do this. Horde formation, 5 wide or 7 wide. Now, 7 wide, I'll come back to that in a little bit. So, how do I determine what I deploy first? Well, usually the insignificant units. If I've got dire wolves, I put them down first. Let my opponent start putting down stuff. Usually, unless you're playing Skaven, they've got few deployments and you're going to have more than them. So you need to understand, or at least know, where they're going to try and play from, where they're going to be setting their army up, etc. And they can't confuse you too much, because usually you're going to outnumber them when you deploy. Now, if you got dire wolves, put them down first. If you got skeletons, put them down first. Ghouls come first. So any core unit that you can get rid of and can be raised back easily, put them down first. Okay? Now, spacing on the battlefield is going to be essential, because you need to have 12 inches for your generals, marching range, other vampires. So make sure that you don't if you're going to put your vampire in a graveyard unit, don't put your graveyard last and they're on the far left flank and you only got one vampire and half your army can't march. Don't do that. Okay? Now, matching up and picking your fights. If you start seeing your opponent put down stuff, such as stuff that's like core units, you can start matching up your fights that you want. So you can tag team with your skeletons or ghouls. If you need to use the misdirection and force them to go in a certain direction, such as you need them to go right, you can put dire wolves over there and make them take care of the dire wolves. Otherwise, if the dire wolves will come in on the flank and hold them up or take down a war machine. So really, you just have to pick your battles here. Now, I put up a little example here at the bottom. 40 halberdiers, 40 Empire halberdiers, and horde formation against. You have 40 skeletons and their hand weapon shield. What do? Now, if the halberdiers are in horde formation, I think that you should go 5 wide, and I think you should make your ranks really deep. Since they're only going to have 4, you can make yours really deep, so they won't be steadfast. You'll minimize the amount of damage doing to you, and you'll have better saves because you will be hand weapon shield. So you have a 5-up armor save and a 6-up parry, or they won't have just a 6-up armor save. So that's what I would do. Now, here's something else too. When you're deploying, there's nothing that says that you cannot change the way you deploy your units as far as the ranks and how 5 wide you are. Or so, for example, if you've originally got your skeletons set up 10 wide, and your opponent puts down a 10 wide unit first, and you decide, well, it's going to be better for me to be 5 wide, you can change the way your unit sets up on the field. You can't change the amount of points that you put into a unit. You can't change the models, but there's no regulation as to saying once you put them on the movement tray, you can't reform them before you deploy them. So put them down the way you want to. And there's no going back once you place them, but at least you would have the advantage to match up and take advantage of the situation. Next, I'm going to address skeletons. They're 8 points a model. Equipment, you can take spears for an extra point per model. Probably not worth it because you want the guys to be sticking around a lot longer. Usually I always run them 5 wide, and that's because I need them to stick around. They're going to tar pit a unit so I can get a flank charge. Are they worth the points? Yes, they are. The fear rule got it really got destroyed, but it's not that big of a deal. When I say are they worth the points, I say yes, but I think that you should bring ghouls first. Now, Crypt Ghouls, they're 8 points a model. They have no equipment, and the downfall is they don't have any commands, so they can't swift reform. I put up a little equation down here. If I'm running 40 plus ghouls, or running 40 ghouls, I put them in horde. That's just to maximize the amount of attacks that you can get, because they're going to be, if you're going up against another horde formation, you're getting 40 attacks that are poison, so that's pretty cool. Are they worth the points? I always bring them first. And I said fluff purposes and support for why I think that Crypt Ghouls should be coming first. If you're a vampire or you're serving a vampire or whatever, Crypt Ghouls are always the first people to come up. They go out and dig up the skeletons. They dig up the graves. They get the zombies together. Those are the undead that aren't really dead yet, and they are the gatherers. So technically, if you have Crypt Ghouls, you're not going to just waste them and send them away once you get all your skeletons together. So ghouls come first, always. Zombies, and I made this slide black because there's nothing that's really good about them. They're 4 points a model, the formation 5 wide. That's always it. Are they useful or wasteful? If you need to fill up core, yeah, go ahead and play them. But I only play them when I summon Undead Horde, and I use them to cover my flank or something like that. So tar pit a unit. So do I ever play zombies in a normal list? Unfortunately not. And I thought about doing it, but I've always kind of just backed down from it when the time actually comes. Next is Graveguard. Graveguard units, 12 points a model. Equipment, you can take great weapons, but they come with heavier armor shield and a hand weapon, which they're also white blades. Now, this is where I sometimes play 7 wide, and I give this credit to Kyle for showing me this. And the formation of 7 wide allows you to do up to 4 more attacks, and that can make or break the odds, especially if you're playing just a unit that's most people play 5 wide and get more ranks, but if you're going to be playing 35 of them, you still have 5 ranks and you're going to be dealing more damage. So hopefully you'll be destroying their ranks. Now, Death Star combo is pretty ordinary. You use the Banner of the Barrows with the unit. You give him Van Hale's Dance Macabre, which gives him always strike first with rerolls. It's a lore spell from vampires. You give them great weapons, so they attack last, but Van Hale's allows them to have always strike first and rerolls, so that's kind of important. Otherwise, they get hit in the face first. And then there's Hellwoman Commandment, which will give them weapon skill 6 or 7, so usually they'll need 3s, and then Banner of the Barrows will give them a 2-up. So they'll usually be wounding on a 2, unless you're toughness 5, which is sometimes the case, but I mean, usually you'll be hitting on a 2-up and you'll be wounding on a 2-up, so that's pretty cool. Does it work as well in practice and in theory? Does it work as well in theory as it does in practice? Yes. I will be as blunt about it as possible. However, I don't like to waste points on Helm of Commandment and trying to throw 6 dice at Van Hale's. It's a great combination. It'll win the combat, but you better break him. Otherwise, there's probably going to be little hope, especially if you're playing Treekin. So, moving on, Spirit Host, 65 points of base, and they're ethereal. Are they worth it? I'll be as quick as possible about this. No, they're not. Moving on. They're good models to have in case you get Wind of Undeath off, but beyond that, trust me when I say don't play them. Black Knights, 24 or 28 points if you give them Barding. Equipment, they're basically just the same thing as a Graveguard, except they're on horseback, and they have, if they're insubstantial steeds, which are skeletal steeds, they don't take any dangerous terrain tests because they're considered ethereal, or their mounts are. So, Death Star combo, you can't field a lot of Black Knights because they are cavalry, so there's not a lot of combos out there. But I would put a White King in there, it's still a hard-hitting unit, but you really just send them in the flank, and hopefully you break whatever it is. That's kind of how that works. So Black Knights, are they worth it? Yes, but I would probably bring Graveguard first and use Black Knights as your flanking force. If you bring a Vargulf with them as an escort, that's pretty cool too. So. Blood Knights, pretty simple. 55 points a model. Equipment, they got 2-up armor save with a lance, so they'll be strength 7 with 3 attacks apiece, and the champion will have 4. Command, give them the Flag of Bloodkeep. So if you run 5 Blood Knights and you give them Flag of Bloodkeep and you give them full command, it's 400 points. So 5 models, 400 points right there. Now if you're playing Storm of Magic, you can knock down on the point cost and give them Banner of Hellfire, and that'll give them fire attacks, and you can go monster hunting. So that's a pretty cool new thing that I've tried out. So monster hunting Blood Knights, you can play up to 4, and they'll basically kill anything because it'll be strength 7 on the charge. You only need 4 models, and they'll cancel regen and break any ward save. So that works. Death Star combo that I use and have used recently, which is the Vampire with Blood Drinker or the Lodestone, which I saw in the Warriors of Chaos combat. And if you play a Vampire Lord, there's the Dread Knight, Dread Lance combo that you could use. Now, this will be the end of this presentation. I made the slide so I didn't goof up anymore. So if you have any comments or suggestions or anything you'd like to add, please leave a comment. I'd greatly appreciate it. So have a good day, and I will get back to you soon with a battle report.